This is beautiful. What is that, velvet?
Peace and love is the key.
You are now about to experience the J&J-Life podcast with your host, Reya'Sekhmet.
But my name combines Rhea, which means a connection to Ra.
J&J-Life podcast, please
Smash that like button. Peace and love is Vicky.
Abi Fahodia family, Abi to meet Abi Wan. I'm Reya'Sekhmet, also known as Reya'Seki. Thank you for tuning in to the J&J-Life podcast, the space where we refuse to let this world define us and distort our understanding of who we are. So family, today will be a powerful discussion because we're confronting 2026's digital and physical threats. And we're doing it by channeling the wisdom of ancient Kush and ancient Kemet with a modern day twist. Specifically, we'll be writing on the foundation on the very being, the principles of truth, justice, harmony, balance, honor, arrangement, reciprocity, and righteousness. These are not just ideas.
Nope.
These are tools to fortify our homes, our minds, and our collective stability. And family, we will uncover how basic ancestral strategies for community defense and spiritual alignment offer powerful blueprints for modern security, protecting our peace and our sovereignty against evolving dangers, family.
Say it one more time.
Evolving dangers.
Yes.
And I don't want to get too far into this without bringing in the special guest. He's a truth teller, a master warrior scholar, and a whole...
There's just too many attributes.
Yes.
Baba Baruti has way too many attributes, and we want to make sure we hit them all. So, you got a whole Google of attributes behind him.
Please welcome Baba Baruti to the show for the second time. How are you doing today, Baba?
We're doing great. I'm thinking about that Google. And, a lot of people don't know that that's a number. It's what it says, the largest number, something, but I know it's a large number.
Yeah.
And you said something also, you repeated it, evolving danger. Evolving danger. We look at stuff like it's past or maybe it's not. No, it's growing, it's getting smarter.
Yeah.
It's doing better destruction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's always good to be on. It's always good to be on here.
Yeah. Yes. And I need to check in with my co-host, the Conscious Locks, my co-host, Baba Rasar. How are you doing today, Baba?
Dua Reya'Seki, and I'm doing very well on this vainglorious day. It's beautiful today.
Yes.
And a Bibi Fahodie, Baba Baruti, always a pleasure.
Yes.
As we always do, I want to give reverence to the ancestors, the olders and the elders for all they have done and are doing. And I just want to take a moment and mention that we found out late last night that we lost one of our heavy hitters, and that was Baba Charles S. Finch III. And I just wanted to make sure we gave him a special shout out and peace to the transition into the ancestral realm for Baba Finch. I also want to say that we had been in contact and communication with Baba Charles Finch earlier last year, but unfortunately our schedules weren't able to line up to where we can get him to sit down with us and have a conversation with Reya'Sekhmet. But he did answer one of my questions, and that was when I was studying ancient Kemet and Kush and trying to help myself understand how to debunk some of the European Egyptologists and stuff like that when they talk about red hair and things of that nature and the shapes and sizes of our noses. He was able to provide information that was very helpful in looking at it through an African lens. And so,
perspective.
Exactly. So peace to the ancestor, and I honor him. Ashe.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So family, like I said, I honor the ones who build the path for us, the ones who whispered truth into our bones long before we had the language to speak it. We stand in gratitude for their discipline, their sacrifices, their clarity, and their refusal to surrender our memory to the enemies of our becoming. So with that, Reya'Sekhmet, I say let's get into it. Let's build.
Ashe.
And Baruti, I want to begin with Kebuka, which is the discipline of remembering. You've taught that forgetting is not an accident, it's a weapon. And remembering is not nostalgia, it's a strategy. Survival, it's warfare. But when we look at our people today, it appears they're distracted, overwhelmed, and overstimulated. And yes, without memory, we cannot defend ourselves or recognize our enemies, or even ourselves for that matter. And Baba, will you speak to the role of Kebuka in this moment and why remembering is not optional for African people?
Oh, it's extremely important to me because we have so many what I call escapists among us. Those individuals, and the numbers are growing because, like you said, the story isn't being told. And when you don't have the memory, then you don't have a weapon. You don't have weapons to fight against it. And for a lot of people, it's like they've been waiting for this time where they could run away, where they wouldn't have to remember. So now we have all of these rationales out here. We didn't come that way. It's not, we don't need to remember that because that keeps us divided. All the rest of that, but it's like if you forget your who you are and where you came from, then you can't find your way home. There's no road, there's no path open for you to find your way home. And I'll say in terms of Kebuka, real quickly, when I taught college, one of the things that I noticed when I began to talk about the quote unquote middle passage and us getting here and the dungeons and all the rest of that, the students, they were fully engaged. They were when students get quiet and they're looking at you, that means usually that they are intensely listening because they're connecting in some way, shape, form, fashion. But what I discovered was that a week later, they couldn't tell you the numbers. They couldn't tell you the details. They couldn't tell you most of what you said because short-term memory, they put it into their short-term memory. This is the kind of memory that's supposed to be with us 24/7. And that really was the reason for writing the book Kebuka, because, as a teacher, you want to bring out the most important points and put them in such a way that the student will remember and they will be able to connect it to other things that they're learning. We don't um, we don't have the imaginations anymore to consider exactly what happened to us. And our minds are trained through this socialization process, through mental side, our minds are trained to dismiss anything that speaks to Europeans or Urugu in a negative way. So I make like there's a subconscious wall that keeps us from looking in any direction, from getting past any point relative to them. So, and in fact, the word Kebuka, Baba Fukiao, who is an ancestor now, I reached out to him and I told him I wanted a word. I didn't want to use Sankofa because everybody was using it, and it's a very, very, very important word. But I wanted another word that we could add to our vocabulary for memory. And he said Kebuka, and I asked him, of course, why? And he said, because Kebuka specifically means not just that you go back and fetch it, but you bring it into now and you use it. It's not just a memory. That's where a lot of us who have decided that they are African American, however they want to phrase it, they stop at the story. They don't apply it in today. They don't use it in terms of their analysis. So when we're talking about Kebuka, we're talking about using what we learn more than anything else. And we don't, that fear is enormous, and it's rationalized in so many ways not to remember, let alone to even try to apply it. So the story is a horrible story, and truth be told, I just touched the surface, in terms of what happened to us. So warriors have to be intelligent, ingenious, visionary enough to use their imaginations to realize exactly what happened, exactly what was this process. The ages of the folks who came over here on those slaveries, those ships called slavers. You know, it was young. I have a chart that I have now that talks about the age, but most of them were young. But all the pictures, I've only seen really one picture where you see the people on the coffin line were actually young folk, you know, 13, 14, 15, maybe years of age. I don't see those pictures anywhere. So our image of it is being controlled. And now the image is being washed away. I've seen 2 books about the Middle Passage by quote unquote Black scholars who took um, my story, if you will. It's not just my story, but how I wrote it, and they watered it down to make it more palatable for Black folks. I don't want it watered down. I want us to. I mean, we'll take, like I said, we can take the games where people, you know, getting their brains blown out, arms cut off, falling off cliffs, all the rest of it. But we can't take the story of the horror of what happened to us, you know, and understand. Well, the other part of understanding is if you understand that, and it's a whole nother discussion of why Europeans cannot incorporate spirit into their science. If you understand what happened, then you're going to look at Europeans very different. You're going to look at Arabs very different. You're even going to look at Asians very different because for a while, the largest group of people who received enslaved Africans out of Africa, obviously, were the Chinese. Okay. So a lot of people are afraid of the story because I'll say, and I say Negroes and lost souls, they want to defend Urugu. They want to be like Urugu so badly, but they know back here somewhere that Urugu will kill for nothing. And they don't want to have to touch that. I've seen people walk by, you know, our table when we're doing a book signing, and I want to say almost literally break their necks trying to turn their faces away from the images that they saw on the books. Hadn't read a word, but saw those images. I will also say, relative to the book, real quick, because we're everywhere. Some of our best minds are in places where we don't expect. All of the images in the book, all of the drawn images in the book were done by brothers who are locked up. Every single image in there is from brothers who are locked up. I traded their art skills for books. They would tell me what books that we negotiate, and you know they would do the artwork. But if we don't remember, and we're trying very hard not to remember, like you said, it's like memory it has become a luxury, a major luxury, and we feel we don't want to pay that price. It's too expensive. You know, we can't drive that car. But it shouldn't be a luxury. It is one of the few things that anybody and everybody in our community can have, can hold, can possess, can you? Yes, absolutely. So it's critical for me. And on this point, I will also say to our warrior in training here today that, you know, my motto has become issue the warning. It's from an African proverb says, issue the warning, some will survive. I say issue the warning and keep on trucking, because people will try to tell you how wrong you are, and you'll get involved in trying to prove to them how right you are, and then your time is gone. One of the best tools that's used against warriors is wasting their time.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to remember, it's to bear that in mind when you're trying to explain things. Those who need to know, they will hear you, like they say, when the student is ready. Okay.
Okay.
Madasi.
You're not so dumb.
And again, family, for those of you who play on words, when we use the term African, we're talking about Black people in and around the diaspora. So, Baba, for clarity, when you say remember, do you mean remembering things like our identity and remembering our responsibility? Because what I hear in your work is that remembering is not a passive state, but more of an active process, daily discipline that shapes how we move. Am I close, Baba?
You are on point. In fact, I was having that discussion with 2 brothers who were here yesterday. They're in their 40s. And they, of course, they understood, they knew that, but we were emphasizing the point that if you're not doing anything, which is what sadly most of the folks who are doing all of the talking about who we are, what we need to remember, what we need to be fighting for, there should be an African Center school on every block. Like I say, there's a church on every block. There's a liquor store on every one of our blocks. There should be an African Center institution in somebody's home, not with a lot of overhead where you're paying for space and paying to have your name up in billboards. Most of the African Center institutions that I have seen fall, they've fallen because they couldn't afford the space that they were in. But the ones who were most successful were the ones that started and stayed in a basement or a living room or what have you. But this is active. If you're not engaging in something that brings your awareness to life, then, not to be mean, but you're a waste, because not only are you not benefiting the people, you're also not setting the example that the children see. And if our children are genius, which we walk around claiming, then they're going to be even better at talking and not doing. Our ancestors said, think, say, do. There shouldn't be a discrepancy between those three things. So if we're to the best of our ability, I mean, you don't have to be a grandmaster in chess to teach our children chess. Teach them what you know, and lead them to where they can get go further than that. So if remembrance can't be applied, then it's a waste of time. And I'm talking about not only the everyday warriors, but I'm also talking about many of our scholars who do not see the application of what they learn by studying Kemet. Okay, by studying the Yoruba, by studying whatever on the continent, they have not applied it in such a way that it benefits us. Okay, did you open up a school to teach children this language or that language? Did you study the houses and then try to build a village? I mean, what are you doing with your knowledge? And that's why I don't really like when people call me an intellectual, because I don't know any intellectuals who are building anything for us. I don't know of one intellectual who's building something for us. I know some people who we wouldn't consider very smart, who don't have all these credentials, and they're doing 20, 30, 40 times as much work. Okay. You're feeding Black folk every week, those who cannot afford food on their own. Then you are applying what you learned. We've gotten away from that. We have, within the European mindset, if you're not contradictory, then something's wrong with you. If you're not, doing something different than what you're saying, then something's not quite right with you. That's not our tradition. This is like, we're a people of evidence, where you walk. I'm a man. Well, where's the evidence of that? If there's no evidence, then you're not a man. I'm a mother. Well, where's the evidence of that? If I don't see any evidence that you're a mother, then obviously you're not that. And because we have incorporated, internalized them and the way they are, because we've embraced all of them. We see every aspect of their being as the source of their power. So we've imitated all of that because we want to be them. And one of those things is, and J. Carruthers talked about it so well in Intellectual Warfare, the understanding that for Europeans, the idea of work is having someone do your work for you. That's the idea of work for them, and we've incorporated that now. That's very much a part of who we are, what we think our identity is. So like you said, for me, it should be a given. If you're saying something, if you're talking about our issues, if you're talking about our problems, if you're talking about the source of our problems, if you're talking about what's being done to us, then there should automatically be something that you are doing to correct that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Baba, we appreciate the breakdown, especially when we think about our young warriors becoming, because those are the ones trying to find themselves in a world that's trying to erase them before they even get started, right?
Yes.
So for them, I say Kebuka isn't just important. I believe it's urgent, because, at least in my opinion, those members of the African village are growing up in a time where the system is attacking their memory before they even have a chance to build one. And it just, it's crazy to even think about it like this, but it's a reality that we have to think about it like this, because you said it, Baba, we at war, we at war, and it's just makes me think on when I'm sitting here raising my family under what we're talking about today, you know, from an African-centered thought and perspective. I had no intention that I would face family members. They don't realize that they are doing the Yurugu's bidding without even know that they're doing it. And for us, myself, my family, Reya'Sekhmet, to point out these things, it's almost like even from family to want to push back. And it's like you pushing back right now is continuing what the Yurugu designed for you to do. You don't even know that you're being
Manipulated.
Say it one more time.
Manipulated.
One more time for the family way in the back.
Manipulated.
Yeah.
Manipulated.
It's just one of those uncomfortable truths that I've had to contend with, because it's not that those family members that I'm mentioning, and shout out to the family, you know, I love my family, but you know, at the same time, you know, I cannot walk in that path because I want my truth raw and uncut, if that means anything. And once I know the truth, I'll be damned if I go back and continue to live the lie that has been put in front of us.
Expound on that for the family.
Say that again?
Expound on that for the family.
Expound on that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
So basically, okay, so family, I mean, they're being fed, and I'm talking about not just the children, but adults alike and family members that you will come across. You know, they're being fed identities that don't belong to them. Right. You know, that's what I'm talking about. They're being handed histories that excludes them. That's what I'm talking about. And if they don't remember who they are, where they come from, or even the greatness encoded in their DNA, then the world will gladly tell them who they will be. That's what I'm talking about. And it won't be in their favor. And that's what we try to share and bring to the table. That's why we believe Kebuka matters, because memory is the anchor, family, that keeps them from drifting away from the truth and from being swallowed whole by a system that profits from their confusion. And forgive me, Baba, I get passionate about this, and
so do I.
You know, so at first I was trying to tiptoe just a little bit, but that's not me. I can't do that. So I say all of that to say that the system will profit off of their confusion, whether they're alive or unalive. We don't witness this too many times. You know, history has shown us this stuff, and I don't put it all on the young warriors or the young warriors becoming, because their parents have to take some accountability as well. But I've also found out that too many of our people are too comfortable being comfortable slaves. You know, they're walking into the same lies, as I said, some of us had to claw our way out of. So family, J&J-Life Ma'atians, or anybody else who watching this show or will watch this show, when we talk about Kebuka, we're not just talking about nostalgia. We're talking about giving our children a fighting chance and giving them a foundation strong enough to stand on, even when the world is shaking beneath their feet. So, Ashe. So, Baba, everything you just shared, that's medicine for us. That's medicine for Reya'Sekhmet, for Ra-Asar, for family, and for all those true warriors that are willing to put in and do the studying and do the work. And I would just say this, and I'll land. Our warrior becomings need to hear it and feel it now more than ever.
And if you don't have vehicles like this, if you don't have voices out there, it will die.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's nothing in the universe that says African people can't be re-enslaved. I've never read that anywhere. I didn't hear a voice, big booming voice out of the sky saying Africans can never be re-enslaved again.
Ashe.
And for a lot of people, they say that's the process that has been going on. That, you know, of course, some people logically, we never left. It's very painful to encounter family members who are agents, and understand what I say with this word. Most of the agents are not paid.
Mm-hmm.
They're not working for the CIA, FBI, whatever, or police department. It's because mental makes us think in a particular way. And by default, you see those people who are trying to return us to being our natural African selves as the enemy, and they must be destroyed. And since you're closest to them in blood, then it becomes a special responsibility for you to mistreat them, misname them, not make them aware of things that are going on within the family, keeping secrets away from them. I'm talking about things, that have been done to me, that have been done to you, and I'm sure that this will continue. Because they have a vested interest in your destruction.
Yeah.
They have a vested interest in making sure that what you say does not impact the children, does not impact the next generations, because, and it doesn't make a difference how many degrees you have. It doesn't make a difference, where you live. It doesn't make a difference how many books you wrote. Okay, to them, it's like you're going against the American way, which means technically you're going against Europeans.
Right.
And that's a major issue for them. We have to, as we're doing this, and you've used the word now several times to talk about, the urgency of the situation. A guy named Clarence Mumford, in a book called Race and Reparations, he talked about the research on the shelf life of a revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, like 20, 30 years, it starts to fizzle. It starts to go out. So, we're looking at right now, really, in the media and in the homes, we're looking at a counter revolution. We're looking at something that's supposed to turn it into something else. It's we, and we're talking about all, and that doesn't make sense historically or history. And you also mentioned something which I thought a lot about when I was teaching college, because we're taught to walk and think and act like Europeans do. And if you are in a classroom with them, like I was in grad school, folks just stand there. They're behind the podium. If they have to go to the board, they will. But they're still like statues. And when I come into the class, I gesticulate. I'm gonna move in my hands. I'm gonna point. I'm gonna use something to explain it to them. I'm going to move back and forth. I don't stay in one spot. I've never, and it's not something I think about. It's like subconscious, second nature, if you will. And when the students first see you, they're looking at you strange. They don't understand first what you're doing wrong. But then it comes to mind that and I'll talk about it, they're judging me based upon how they've been taught professors should move. And you're not supposed to be passionate. You're not supposed to be passionate about that.
Right.
I raise my voice all the time. Had one day a student, I was talking about drug addiction and alcohol among youth. And I was talking about how much alcohol on average Black young folk drink. And especially the worst statistic about the youngest, you're talking about 11, 12, 13 years old. And I said, on average, and one guy got up and said, oh, well, that's not, significant. And I went ballistic. I said, if drinking one drop of alcohol, that's significant. If they drink one drop in their lifetime, that's significant in terms of the statistic. These are children. Mm-hmm. So I get very, very passionate about what I'm saying, and we need to stay that way. We need to model the standard that we want to have. And we are a passionate people. We are very emotional people, and I say that in the best of ways. I'm glad this is the way I am. Yeah, we'll encounter people who cannot listen because they can't understand. They can't understand that.
Look, Baba, and I'm going to digress just for a moment, only because it's fitting for me to say this, and I'm not going to put anybody on blast in the family, but I have an aunt. I have an aunt that lives in Atlanta, and she's done very well for herself. She's retired. Living out her dream as she so says it. Now, Reya'Sekhmet is an accomplished author. She has her books, and this aunt,
more than just for her age.
it, exactly. And if and when a person dives into the reading, they will see that this book is befitting in all African households, you know. But this particular aunt that is accomplished, God-fearing Christian, texts me and says, well, before I buy the book, not just that I can't support you or support my great niece, it's before I buy this book, I need to know, does it go against my views and values of Christianity? And because I'm a Christian first, I'm thinking, I'm just looking at this text message, like all these misnomers and all this Yorugu way of thinking. And I wanted to tell her, because, you know, based off of the podcast and the people that we've had on here, I can tell that she hasn't watched or listened. She only sees what perception has shown her is, you know, image that she sees on our shows, and the mouths are moving, but her volume is on mute. So she doesn't know what we really talk about, but she just sees terms, she sees maybe symbols, and she's into the symbolic thing and thinking that that's not Christian.
She sees your hair.
Exactly. So I say all of that, you know, kind of leading into where Reya'Sekhmet is going to go, is that, man, it is so true that they took the shackles off of our hands and our feet and put them on our mind.
Stronger ones on our mind.
Because even and I'm just using my family because I can point out all type of stuff that we see outside these walls, but just even in the family, you know, just like, man, I am so blessed that I came up out of that, because, you know, that's what I had said, that we had clawed our way up out of this. And I don't want to go back, because just even that whole Christianity and the Bible and, you know, all those characters and that allegory of story of that they have fallen victim to, even people in my family, like my aunt. So I just want to kind of preface where Reya'Sekhmet is about to take us into the mindset, because it is a war for our mind, and that's how I would preface it. You know, so yeah, go ahead, Reya'Sekhmet. I didn't want to interrupt your flow.
So, Baruti, I've come to know, without the mindset, the tools just don't matter. From what I've been taught, the mindset determines whether the tools are used correctly or ignored entirely. What would you say are the first mental habits a family needs to build if they want to shift from passive living to active guardianship? Floor is yours, Baba.
I would, and all this is going to be practical. Whatever I say, hopefully will all be practical. First thing they need to do is they need to set aside the time to read, to study together, you know, give each other assignments. And it doesn't have to be, you know, large in terms of practical terms. It could be 15 minutes a day. But you can imagine how much you would learn and understand in 365 days if you were doing something 15 minutes every day. Also, in terms that they would, our scholars have said, you know, when you look around your house, when you look around your space, everything you see should be African. It should remind you of who you are. Yeah, even things, you know, when you start to read, when you start to study, when you start to understand something that speaks back to what Baba said, how painful it would be to kill what you have learned. Okay, so it would be very painful for them if they did that. And the parents, I want to say the parents need to set the standard, but sometimes the children need to set the standard of what it means. Sometimes the children need to say, well, we need to read this. Can we read this? Can we study this? I saw this, you know, podcast about, can we watch this together?
Right.
So they can grow as a family together. Of course, in many cases, the family is going to reject that, but that shouldn't stop that person from doing what they're supposed to be doing. Well, I guess there are other things, not guess that there are many other things, but I think the reading part and the conversation about the reading part, the critical study of whatever it is, whatever that book is very important to get people started, because if that book, the idea of that book is ingrained, a book that speaks to the African way, who we are as African people, how bad our situation is. It reminds me of a conversation that I had when Chuck D of Public Enemy came out with made a statement where in that statement he said, attention is the new currency. And I was talking to some students about that, and they were there was an issue because their idea of popularity, their idea of being somebody was, everybody knowing their name. I'm in the mall and somebody hollers my name from the other side of the mall. I know I'm important. How many people I have on, my speed dial or what have you. I said, you really want to be known? And, I was asking them, you really want to be known? You really want people to call your name? I said, make African people sovereign. Mm-hmm. Your name will be remembered and said forever. You want to be remembered, you want people. So we have to reframe. They have to reframe as they study. You all could give a list of 10 books where somebody could close their eyes and just point or pull out one. And that book would feed them by itself. It would feed them enough to get started on their African way, on their African path. So without that study, Reya'Sekhmet, which you just talked about, without that study, without that basic understanding of who we are, then the tools are irrelevant. Okay. Right. So from that study, okay, well, you read this particular book. Let's go create some raised beds. And those raised beds can lead to conversations when you invite the other children over to help you with your garden. Okay. If you are the teenagers or the young parents, they might say, okay, well, we just watched the movie Sankofa. Let's bring in some of the children from the community, since we already talked about it, and feed them this and see who takes what from it. And we'll know who to continue to teach, because we don't have time to waste on people who don't want to know, don't want to understand, at whatever age, whether it's their fault or not. So the reading is the key. Podcasts like this are the key, not the vast majority of them, if I'm saying podcast correctly, not the vast majority of them, but there are specific ones that they need to listen to, that they need to, one that maybe deals with Nana Jahirat Clark, one that maybe deals with political issues in Africa right now from an African-centered perspective. It will help them to develop their perspective and understand, which will allow them to begin to see a larger number of lives. And usually with that, when a project comes up or there's something that they can do, or they want to help out here, or they want to start a school, or they want to whatever talents or skills they have, when you're doing that, then introduce the African-centered ideas to whoever you're doing it with, who doesn't have them, who has the mentality who's not so deep in their mental side that they are open to, genuine understanding of our story and who we are. For some people, that may sound, kind of boring. Like they taught us history was boring, and you don't want to read history. It's boring. But there are going to be some in there who are going to do it. Just like Reya'Sekhmet, you have, people now, young folk now, who study you. They're looking at you as a model because they look at you and they recognize power. Young folk recognize power. They recognize power. And that's, I say, the problem with a number of the young voices out there who are speaking for us. They don't realize how powerful they are. They don't realize that people are listening to their voice. They don't realize there are people who are looking at everything that you do when you're online. Oh, she grabbed her ear. That must be something, significant relative to what have you. They don't realize just how powerful they are. Most of our warrior scholars don't really realize the impact that they're having on minds that say, no, something's wrong with that flat earth theory. Something's wrong with that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Baba, because I don't know if Reya'Sekhmet knows how much power she has in her pen that she presents information, because in her writings she's introducing those that read or look at her picture books or read her novel. She's introducing them to terms like the Kemetic terms of Haru, Ra, Sekhmet, Asar, not the Greek terms, or what the Yurugu tries to present today. She's giving them the terms of what they were and how they were pronounced back when they were created. So there's like I said, there's different elements within her writing and her thought process that, look, we don't have family members try to corner her and say, oh, you're giving a one-sided view of the world. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What about the 50 plus years that I've been on this planet, that for 40 of them, I've studied, I have 2 master's degree from the European institutions, and none of that information that I studied from the time that I came out the womb to in my 40s were anything like what we're talking about today. So back to those family members, you're trying to corner a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old at the time, and see how much information and knowledge that she has when it comes to what they consider real world European way of thinking in terms and ideals and stuff like that, to what
their
what Ma'at
one-sidedness
says. Yeah, what the principles and stuff that and value virtues that we stand on. And she held 10 toes down, because what's Ma'at?
Truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, arrangement, reciprocity, and righteousness.
And you stand on that, right?
Yes.
And it goes against their one-sided view.
Yes.
All those principles go very much against it. So if you operate on those principles that you talk about, then you're going to be an oddball.
Yes.
Very much so.
I like being an oddball. I like that. It's a nice name. I like that.
I told her that she's an intellectual extremist.
Yes. Love it.
When I look around my home, I see everyday items that many people may overlook, like a Louisville Slugger. And for the people that may not know, that's a baseball bat, like by a bedside or a sharp object. And most families have simple tools like that, but they don't think about how these items can fit into a larger safety plan. They don't think about responsibility, storage, or even basic readiness. So my question is, when families think about home defense, what would you say are the basic everyday household tools or resources they should understand how to use personally, responsibly, and so they're part of an overall safety plan?
Well,
like a safety plan?
Yes.
Okay. And that's interesting. I like the idea of a Louisville Slugger. I like the idea of axe handles. I like the idea of broomsticks. If you have the right state of mind, then wherever you go, in your house and outside, you should be looking for weapons. Not that you feel like you're going to get attacked, not that you're going to feel like you need to hurt somebody, but that should be a part of your second nature. Where every room that you are in, there's something in your house, there's something, your apartment, there's something that you have placed intentionally that's not obvious.
Yes.
Because you never know what room something's going to happen in. You don't know what window the person's going to come in. So for me, it's like when I say, when I was young, I'm getting ready to turn 70 in like a month or so. When I was young, this was like common sense. What you had in your room, what you had in your house. There were weapons everywhere, but they weren't seen as weapons, and people weren't walking around, chewing on their fingernails and freaking out at the first sound. No, it was just a general level of security that's not present today. When I was your age, I never heard about a child who was stolen, a woman who was stolen, a Black girl, African girl who was stolen. Because parents moved in a particular way, the community moved in a particular way where those weren't threats, because they were protected. They had set up things in commonsensical ways, where things were protected. If you don't, the first thing, just like with the books, with getting some intellectual direction to your work, if you don't understand that you're at war, if you don't understand that you're being warred on, and even beyond that, because we've molded ourselves after them, except we've molded ourselves after them in a way that keeps us defenseless.
Yes.
If you don't understand that you're at war, then you don't see a need for a weapon. So that's part of the process. If you don't understand how bad it is until somebody breaks into your house, until somebody steals your car, until somebody assaults you. And that's part of the mentality. The questions, both of these questions that you have asked, they require an unfolding of the threat, an unfolding and understanding of where we've been taken to think, where our minds think. We don't, it's instantaneous stuff for show, stuff to be, so you can be seen. So the threat opens up in a reality where there is no good or bad per se. Mm-hmm. The good and bad come on whether you win or you lose. So if I beat you down, beat you bloody, beat you to death, if I won, then I'm right. If I took your milk money and you can't prevent me from doing that, then I'm right. I'm the hero. I'm the one that everybody's going to be talking about in a positive way. So we have a world where Ma'at has been turned completely and totally upside down. And that upside down is what's glorified. And that's what we act on. When I was coming up, there was only one bully I could remember. His name was Billy Harrison. Okay. He stopped when my brother brought a hatchet to school and he tried to mess with my brother again. But it's like today, bullies are glorified. You look at movies where the bad guy is the hero, the person who's the serial killer, the person who is the sharpshooter, the person who's for hire to kill is seen as the hero, and they're made into humans. Your ancestors, when they talked about being a human, that was something that you earned. You weren't born with that. It was something that you had to earn based upon your action, your attitude. So when we're talking about security, what you are going to see and find in our home here is going to be very different than what you find in our neighbor's home because of the fact that we are aware of, I'll say, three things. Number one, we're being warred upon. Mm-hmm. Number two, not being turned upside down. And number three, because of who we are. We know there are people who feel threatened by that automatically. And we have been brought up in the society not to think about it. You just destroy the threat. So you're a threat too. Both of you know you're a threat in this society because you are trying to bring back into existence or expand on the existence of an African mind, the African way, on being African, not just talking it, but being African. So commonsensically, the level of security in your home should be higher. That should be, part of the conversation. So, maybe every couple of weeks or so, something happens and I'll ask any well, what would you do in this situation? And we talk about it for a second and then we forget about it. At Aakhu'Ra Institute, when we had students physically in the house, we had a security drill. Yeah. So when a certain word was said in the part of a lecture conversation, they knew to as quietly as possible, get up out of their chairs, form a single line, and walk to where we had assigned them to walk so that the adults could handle whatever the threat was. Yes. Okay. You're not going to find something like that in a regular school. You're not going to find something like that in the most quote unquote African-centered school because they're misusing the word, they're misusing the title, the term. So you have to be on even more alert, but very much so it needs to be kept to yourself in a very important way because you're being brought up in a world where the challenge is to destroy somebody who they believe can't be destroyed. So you become a target. Your car becomes a target. Your house becomes a target.
And Baba, even with something as simple as a baseball bat or a sharp object, I have to think about where it is stored. Like, who can reach it and whether it's appropriate for kids like me to handle it in the house. And a lot of families don't even think through those layers or evaluate what's suitable for their household structure. So Baba, how would you, or better yet, how should people evaluate what is safe and appropriate for their household? And I'm talking about, I'm not just adults, but children alike, when building a home defense plan and using what once may have been a toy, but is now a tool to where a child is fighting for his or her life.
And that comes back, the foundation is important for everything. But that comes back, for me, one of the major issues today, and this is sideways of answering your question, most of the children today have been spoiled. That's the nature of being reared in this reality. But it works against us. My grandfather had a shotgun laying up against the fireplace in everybody's view. Anybody could touch it. But the children knew, big dad, granddad, whoever said, don't touch that. So you didn't. You didn't think about what, well, why can't I touch it? This is in here. I can touch whatever I want to. That kind of mentality doesn't exist. So in your home, you have to have a level of discipline which allows you to have weapons placed in certain places. Okay. Whatever weapons you have, they need to be wherever you're going to be at when you're normally in that room. So if you're normally near the stove when you're in the kitchen, then it should be somewhere near there. If you have a room where your bedroom and you usually sit over there on the chair beside the bed and that's where you do your reading, then it should be there. It shouldn't be on the other side of the room. It's like common sense. It needs to be within reach.
Yes.
Okay? How you position your chairs, how you position what bedroom people are supposed to be in. The parents should be closer to the front door than the children are when they're asleep.
Yeah.
They should have to go through, just like in the Afrikan culture, the woman had to climb over the man, wake him up in order for her to get up and go to the bathroom. She had to wake him up automatically, which meant that you had to go through him to get to her.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, weapons come in all kinds of shapes, and it can be very unobvious. I have a pair of scissors which are made in such a way I can take both parts apart, and you can use them to stab or what have you. So, yeah, whistles is important. You're waking up the whole family or some other sound or training yourself to wherever there's a sound in the house that you don't recognize, you immediately go. So if any of y'all is in the kitchen and wall spray, the most important weapon, especially in the bathroom.
Yes.
It might, a can of wall spray might be kind of conspicuous in the front room. But, so they have to be things that fit within the decor, if you will. They have to be things that match. And of course, the room that should be most protected is the bedroom.
Yeah.
Because that's when you are most defenseless as you will, because you sleep. Yeah. You have to have something that's close, to grab that's very effective. If you're out in you got a raised bed in your backyard, then you need to have something in or near that raised bed where you have to think about what would be most appropriate, as well as whenever you walk. That's one of the things that we taught the students here. You have to be trained for your mind, second nature, not you really thinking about it, to wherever they go, whatever room they enter, their mind automatically finds all the possible weapons.
Yeah.
So when I walk into this room right here, one of the first things that I got rulers, I got scissors, I have hardback books. Those hurt. Mm-hmm. Okay. I got broomsticks. I got, things I can throw, things that are long enough for me to swing in here. And they're inconspicuous as I don't know what to the average person, but I know the world that we live in. If I didn't know the world that we live in, then it wouldn't occur to me to protect the home to that degree. Yeah. And as also, I used to tell the students at Morales who would look at me like I was crazy and said, okay, if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, and nobody ever breaks into your house, nobody ever assaults you anywhere, okay, that's fine. But what if I'm right? What if I'm right? People that 100 and some thousand Black women missing and girls missing? How could that happen? And I, of course, argue spoilage is part of that. When our daughter was young enough to live in this house, she understood. It got on her nerves, but she wasn't going anywhere without me going or knowing where she was going, and could see her. So she would do volunteer work at another African Center school, which was at the end of this block. It was like around the corner, maybe 6 feet past the corner, past where I could see her to the door. I stand out on the sidewalk and watch her walk all the way down, because that was like, just made common sense to me in this world, in this reality. So it's like, I can't, and you didn't ask me to, but I can't tell you how to set up your room so that it's like a fortress, so it's better defended. But if you think about the fact that people break into people's houses, if you think about the fact that we are at war, then that helps to frame, how you turn a room into a secure area.
Yeah.
When I was your age, I didn't understand why my father And it really wasn't a concern, but why he always parked his car with the nose of the car facing out of the driveway. And it was simple, because if I have to get to the hospital, it's going to shave some minutes off of my time, backing up slowly, looking for traffic, bro, and then finally going forward versus I just take off.
Yeah. And I want to transition into something.
Well, hold on, Reya'Sekhmet. Let's let that rest a little bit, because what Baba Baruti has said, I mean, there's all sorts of things, family, that are in and around our surroundings, especially in our home, that we can use to defend ourselves. And I like how you say that, Baba. You know, we don't use that term weapon lightly. You know, these are tools, you know, that we have, that we use, that can be a weapon.
Yes.
And so, you know, whether it's the padlock that you may have, or the whistle to warn, or the wasp spray, and you know, I want to make sure I put that back up again. You know, we're talking about wasp spray,
You can't forget the whistle.
something that is inexpensive, right?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and that you can use. And the idea, family, is not to subdue your intruder or anything like that. You're trying to buy yourself time so that you can make that fast getaway, or you know, in some cases you may have to fight like hell to have that person be unalive, you know.
Yes,
but the idea
yes.
of the wasp spray, to give you some distance, put some distance between you and that intruder, so that you can make a better decision on what that outcome is going to be like. So I just wanted to put a pause right there and just really put that out there. Some of these people that we come across in our walk of life are remedial. You know, it's like they need to be thumped in the head a few times before they, you know, it click. You know, oh, that's what that is. That's not just wasp spray. That is a defense mechanism. You know, so I just wanted to put that out there.
And a lot of people, like, when you're in a home, a lot of people can, like, think the security system will keep them safe, or good neighbors will keep them safe. But no, the security system is there to warn you that someone is there.
There you go.
But you have to have the common sense to know what to do if someone was there.
Say that one more time.
You have to have the common sense to know what to do if someone was there.
Say it one more time for the family in the back.
You have to have the common sense to know what to do if someone was there. So my point is, like, you would want to have something to defend yourself with if someone was there.
Yeah.
The key word, someone was or is there.
Okay. There it is.
Past tense and present.
There it is.
You know, the ancestor says you don't build your shield, you don't make your sword or your spear on the battlefield.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be there.
Yeah,
So I really recommend to people, and to me it's not that political of a book. It's got some politics in there, if you will, because that's how we talk. But that's not the heart of the book. Folks need to read comments. They don't want to hear my mouth. Read Common Sense Security. If you want to get a better understanding, then come to the Common Sense Security lecture. It's now almost 3 hours long, because stuff keeps getting added that folks, should think about. So you have it's like when you read, okay, you read all this material, but out of that material, you may get one or two sound arguments, reasoning, teachings out of that. But if you hadn't read that, you wouldn't have any of that. So I said, when I was your age, I was, this was like virtually everything in there was like just what people did without thinking, because they operate at the level of security.
Absolutely.
And Rudy, I want to build on that piece, which was making sure children understand that preparedness is about protection. But I want to bring in the principles of Ma'at. And this is more for the family that may not know. Okay, so Baba, we talk about Ma'at when life is calm, truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, arrangement, reciprocity, and righteousness. But the real test isn't during peace. The real test, well, I've been taught that the real test is when a person is under pressure, when the fear rises, when someone else may have ill intentions toward you or toward the people you're responsible for. And in those moments, we don't want our morals or our principles to misguide us, right? Like, we don't want someone hesitating, second guessing themselves, or trying to be righteous at that exact moment they're fighting for their life, or watching over someone who depends on them. So I want to ask you, does ma'at still fit when someone is under duress? And how does a person hold on ma'at without actually letting morality or principle become trapped
And
that cloud?
So what are you trying to say? Like, you want to hold on to ma'at
Yes.
without letting your morals or your virtues get in the way of you fighting for your life or something like
That's
that?
exactly the point that I was trying to make.
and that's part of the problem with a lot of us. We believe one side or the other. Either you are violently aggressive or you are passively peaceful. One of those two. And there's a lot of area in there when it comes to Ma'at. In Aakhu'Ra Armour's book, The Healers, he saw it's where these young brothers on the continent, they're going through a rights program, if you will, for healing, and there are certain things that apply to a healer, things that they have to swear to for the rest of life. You can't smoke, you can't side with the political order, et cetera, et cetera. One of them was you can't harm. You can't, harm, kill another person. So one of the students, who's like the main character in the story, one of the students, he says, why can't you harm somebody? Why can't you? And his teacher was saying, well, no, you shouldn't do that. But why would you ask that question? Why would you think that? He said, well, what if somebody's coming in to harm your family, harm you? And he said, no, you can't hurt anybody. He said, you should be able to. Essentially, he said, and the teacher said, well, why? How could you do that? He said, if what you are, if you need to hurt that person in order to stop them from destroying,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's where the qualification comes in. So otherwise, if you're not damaging me, then I'm not going to try to damage you. Of course, you also need to take that in historical context because Europeans have been damaging us for centuries now. In terms of Ma'at, I think it needs to be applied that way because our ancestors were wise. When you talk about the oracles, you're saying, I will not curse someone or I will not be in hot anger. And then the next word is except. It wasn't absolute, except anything that endangers society, anything that endangers your home needs to be stopped. I don't think that compromises my eye because everything needs to be taken into context. Just like the different people who you treat them differently. You respond to them differently based upon the kind of personality they have and your experience with them. So I don't think it changes my at all. You try to, if anything, it adds to it. It augments it because I want truth. I want my family to be able to speak truth. And if no one is here because I allow somebody in here to kill them all, then there's going to be no truth, or it's going to be the wrong kind of truth. It's going to be Europeans mental truth. So it's how you are. You make that judgment first. Like back in the day, you never swung first. You didn't hit first. And my father, who was a very quiet man, he was in the military, army, retired from the army, but he was, a very quiet, peaceful man. And I used to get into quite a few fights, and that would, of course, upset my mom. And he took me to the side. He would say, um, "You never swing first. You never hit that person first." He
Right.
said, "But once they touch you, you have my permission to break something." Okay, so once that line is crossed, which keeps you from being of my eye, which keeps you from acting in my eye, then you do whatever is necessary to make sure that you're preserved. Because if you're not here, you let somebody do damage to you. I don't even think about the hospital bills, but if you're gone, I mean, how are you going to take care of your children? How are you going to protect your children? How are you going to teach your children what
Right.
Ma'at is? You're not around anymore. You're not able to do that. So it's to me, it's like relative. It's a relative term. The situation is going to dictate the degree to which I do something, which some people may feel violates Ma'at. But for me, it helps to ensure Ma'at because it keeps danger out of the situation, out of the circumstances, so we can be Ma'at.
Yeah.
Ashe.
Ashe. And we agree with you wholeheartedly, Baba.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that people seem to forget.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'at is not a command to just freeze right?
Yeah.
Or hesitate, or nor to let someone else chaos override their duty to protect themselves,
Absolutely.
or the people that they care about
Mm-hmm.
or under their protection, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would just say to the family that if someone asks me if my aunt still applies under duress, I say, of course, just like Baba Baruti had just mentioned, because under that context, especially, because I would say that my aunt never told us to abandon discernment or to surrender our sovereignty in the face of someone else's ill intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
Say it one more time.
You want me to say it one more time?
Yeah.
My aunt never told us to abandon discernment or surrender our sovereignty.
One more time for the family way in the back.
My aunt never told us to abandon how to recognize something, family, or surrender our sovereignty in the face of someone else's ill intention. And again, my aunt told us not to become the source of injustice and not to ignore injustice when it's coming toward us. We fight like hell to defend ourselves, and put our life on the line if necessary.
Yeah, and Bob Rudy and Bob Rastard, thank you both for breaking this down. Thank you both for breaking this down with the level of honesty and precision our people deserve. I want to take a moment to summarize what I'm hearing so far, because this is the kind of clarity that can actually change how families move.
Absolutely, Reya'Sekhmet, and take your time, because this, coming from Baba Rastar and Baba Baruti, is great information, especially for adults who are willing to put in the work and study this information. But having your voice speaking to the youth, I think it sets a whole nother level of precedence that is necessary and needed in today's time, especially.
Yes. Thanks, Baba. Okay, so family, what I'm hearing is Ma'a is not something you only practice when life is calm. It's a kind of framework that still applies under pressure as long as you're not causing harm, acting in ignorance, and abandoning your responsibilities. And then I heard preparedness is not panic, but more like structure, awareness, knowing in your environment, who is in your environment as well, and your role. And lastly, and correct me if I'm where I'm wrong, but our morals and principles are not meant to freeze us when someone else has ill intentions. They're meant to keep us aligned so we don't become the source of injustice while we're protecting ourselves and the people who depend on us. And I believe there was more, but that's what I was able to remember. But what I'm learning, Ma'at is not a restraint, but a stabilizer. Ma'at keeps you clear so you can't act with purpose instead of reacting out of panic. Is that correct, Babas?
That's correct. And I like the way you use act and react.
Yeah.
I very much like the way you use that, because that needs to be a part of young folks' definitions.
Yeah.
But also, I will add something. And I said this, and people, they didn't understand at first. The first thing I said, you should panic, but in pretense only. Because if somebody has an advantage over you, you pretend to panic because that gives them a sense of over assuredness. They start getting too confident. They think that they got you. They think that you have lost. You quit, because people know when you panic, once you panic, you've lost.
Right.
But you pretend panic when you're at a disadvantage. Pretend like you are, I'm gone, I'm dead. Oh, please help me, don't do this. Oh. Because at that time, you're looking to see where you can gain an advantage. Just like in chess, you might have to retreat the queen, but you move her back to a place where she can attack better from. So panicking, I'll say the pretense of panic, is a good thing if you're overwhelmed, if you're at a disadvantage. But you're not panicking. Your heart's not panicking. Your mind is not panicking. You're trying to figure out in your pretend panic how to gain over the situation, because they're going to read the panic. They're not going to read you thinking. They're going to read the panic. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was also going to say, relative to our ancestors, all of the wisdom, and we tend not to look at the wisdom that talked about society's falling apart, this is going on, brothers aren't speaking to brothers, we aren't respecting each other. One of the statements was, if you turn your face from violence, who's going to correct it? Who's gonna make everything right? If you, a warrior, if you who know what it means to be African, if you who knows Ma'at does not do what's needed to be done to correct the situation, then who's going to do it? It just gets worse and worse and worse.
Facts.
So our ancestors didn't talk about, they didn't speak, I don't remember reading anywhere where the ancestors said, in the face of an assault, run.
Yes.
You know, I've never, maybe I've been reading the wrong books, but I've never read anywhere where our ancestors said to run. Prepare.
I haven't came across it.
Yeah. Prepare, take out whatever the issue is, correct it, shield your people, those things, yes. But run, that wasn't one of the qualifications of just a straight up human. That's not a warrior.
Exactly. Ashe.
Ashe. Now let's keep building. And Baba Baruti, when we study Kemet and Kush, one thing becomes clear. Those narratives did not survive because individuals protected themselves. They survived because the people moved as a collective body or unit. And through the teachings of my Nana Mu and Baba Rasar during my lessons at the Mu Institute for Ancestral Learning, I learned that at the height of ancient Kush and Kemet, neither nation relied on isolation defense. There was shared information, responsibility, and shared vigilance. Basically, everybody watched the horizon, listened for any shifts or anything that appeared off or not in alignment. And everybody understood that the safety of one was tied to safety of all. Now, here we are in 2026. How do you think we rebuild community defense within the African village on this soil in a modern context using secure communication tools while still honoring the collective defense principles we saw in Kemet? What does a functional, realistic neighborhood defense network look like today, both in majority Black communities and in places where Black families are isolated or outnumbered?
Well, I'll answer that in terms of what we need. Proximity, that sense of being close to each other, next to each other, needs to become a physical thing. Ideally, the best possible scenario, we're on some land. We have established defenses there. We have set up our housing in such a way we can defend each other better. Because when you're talking about a collective, you're talking about a unit. It's supposed to be operating together. Like you said, everybody's ear is one ear. So that needs to be thought about. How would you make that secure? And there are things, of course, that we don't necessarily need to talk about online because they know who you are, which means that somebody is probably listening who shouldn't be listening. But you have to set up things in such a way. You have to prepare. Preparedness is key. You have to be in a situation where everybody automatically knows when there's a threat. Maybe there's a certain sound. Maybe there's a certain kind of movement. Maybe there's a certain, the phone rings in a particular way where everybody knows, okay, there's a threat. Everybody needs to go to their particular place of defense, offense, what have you, and then move from there. But you can't do that so well if the community is so spread out over the city that it would take you 10 minutes to get to the next closest person, or 15 minutes to get to the next closest person. Even if you have a series of walkie-talkies that'll reach the other side of the city, there can be interference as well as their ability to shut down stuff in the airways. So for me, starting from scratch, ideally, you need to get some land. You need to plan on getting some land because there you can do things that you can't do in the city. On land, you can dig certain things. You can build certain things in certain ways that no one else is going to be brought in to build that for you. I know a guy who built a gun range underground because he didn't want that sound to be getting out. So he had to dig out this long ditch. It was about maybe 4 feet wide, targets to the other end, lights, everything else, and a doorway which you couldn't detect. If he brought someone else to do that, then whoever he brought in to do that, you don't know who their friends are, you don't know who their family is, you don't know any rest of this. So everything done on that land needs to be done by the people who are on that land. That's a very general statement, but for me, that's the ideal situation. That would be perfect for that situation. Just like maroon societies, that would be the ideal, perfect situation for us. In the city, which is where most of us are, we need to make, you need to make the practice of seeing each other on the regular, visiting each other on the regular, keeping up with each other on the regular. You need to have a set of walkie-talkies where you can communicate. Even something as simple as get snowed in. Who needs food? Who needs water? You need to have escape routes. You need to have you need to have escape routes that you've practiced. And you also need to be aware, which a lot of people, when they're talking about survival plans, they don't think about Urugu. So a lot of people who have, bug out bags and all the rest of this, exactly where you're going to go. And what is stated is you head toward the woods. Where do you think they are now? They're waiting for you.
Yeah.
So you have to have a plan in such a way so that they're waiting for you is not going to affect your ability to get away. We don't use, that's what's called common sense security. We don't use not only our skills and the things that we know and just how to make a slingshot, how to make a bow and arrow out of PVC pipe. We don't use those things we can learn along with their behavior historically. So they also have plans. If all heaven breaks loose and you have to escape, they also have their own plans. It's like when you're playing chess, you don't play like the person you're playing is an idiot, doesn't know how to play the game. They're trying to win too. They're trying to beat you as well. And a lot of our discussions and talk about do not consider them at all. Okay. They have the most weapons. They have the most guns. They're like 900 and some gun manufacturers in this country alone. Gun shows, all the rest of this. We don't have to go in great detail. So they are prepared, and they're preparing you. Go online, Google girls' gun competition, and you're going to scroll down for a while before you see the first black girl. Say the same thing for boys' gun competition. You're going to scroll down even longer before you see a black male, black boy on there. When you search father teaching the son how to shoot, you're going to be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, seeing white fathers teaching their sons how to shoot guns. The first picture that I saw when I was scrolling down was a black man showing his son how to shoot a basketball. So the mentality is different. And we're not prepared for their mentality because we don't believe what they're capable of, number one. We don't believe that they can actually be this kind of a beast, this kind of a being. We don't believe that. So you can't properly prepare. You can't properly defend yourself. I know what they are capable of doing.
Absolutely.
I know that they will kill for nothing. I know that they will kill for fun. I know that whatever. And when chaos breaks out, then it's going to be a whole lot more of that. I met guys when I was in the military, white guys. I never met a black guy like this. But I met white guys when I was in the military who came into the military because they could legally kill. That's all they came in for. That was the excitement of joining the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or Coast Guard. So we have to incorporate what they're probably going to do. What common sense in terms of European warfare are they ready for now? There's a Jewish, I can't think of the name of the think tank now, but they kept track of militia groups, hate groups, all the rest of this. And one thing that they really didn't discover, we discovered it. In this class, we were looking at that data. Around every major metropolitan area that has a significant black population, they have camps all around that city, in different places around that city. Why? We're not ready for that. We're not thinking in those terms. We somehow think that, when all heaven breaks loose, we're going to be able to, run to those woods over there and be able to, find us a stream and have some water and be able to camp and use, the mud and make us a nice little palace out there. That's not how it's going to be. Common sense tells us that. And I have never encountered a war, skirmish, conflict where that was what happened. It doesn't work like that. Our ancestors didn't work like that.
Those comments are a great segue into something we have to address. And that is the mindset that keeps too many of our people stuck in cycles of fear, confusion, and dependency, which brings us to a topic Baba Baruti has never shied away from. And that is the Negro problem. I've come to know that the Negropedia combines Negro, which is a dated term for black people, and European to highlight a contradiction. Someone who is African by birth or ancestrally by mentally but mentally and culturally aligned with European systems. And the best example of someone that fits this title is I've come to know Jesse Lee Peterson or those like him. But Baruti, you've always been clear. We cannot build a liberated future while carrying Negro tendencies, fear, dependency, imitation, and confusion. So, Baba, how do we lovingly but firmly confront Negro behavior in our family and in our community? Basically, Baba, how do we remove the internal habits that make us unsafe?
Sometimes we're going to have to be deceitful, be misleading, because Negroes don't need to know what you're doing. You know, I speak to anybody, you know, who skin folk, what have you. I say, you agree, I hold the door, all the rest of that. But we have to know what we can tell them and what we can't. We need to know, you know, so if I'm storing artillery, which I am not, but if I'm storing artillery, then there's really no one in my family who I could tell, who could keep that secret, who either wouldn't run immediately to the FBI and tell them, or who wouldn't do things to try to discourage me from doing that. So for me, I keep them at arm's length. There are things that I just do not tell them. There are things that I tell warriors who are working with me, working us. But the best policy is to not let them know what you're doing, to let them think that you're purely an intellectual. They can understand that. They can understand, you know, but they can't understand if you are actively building for a village. Okay, so your idea of a village might be somewhere in the city where the 20 families that you know that are African centered, they know that as their mortgage comes up, as their rent comes up, they need to buy something in that area so they can be closer. They can be more proximous. But there are things that you got to learn how to not tell them everything, because they're listening very carefully to what you say, because whether it's the forefront of their mind or the back, your enemy. If you're enemy of the Europeans, you're enemy of them. That's their validators. Those are the people that tell them they're okay, they're cool, the clothes that they wear, all the rest of this, the income, how they define things. They're validated by Europeans. They're validated by our enemies. So I can't trust them not to tell. Very interesting study. Every revolt of Africans in this country was betrayed by Negro. Every single one. Because that individual was trusted to be in their midst. Okay. And for me in particular, if I'm having a conversation with the Negro on the street, I'm saying very little. I'm listening. Because a lot of them, they love to talk, you know, and you end up with all kinds of information. But I'm not engaging them in conversation. But I don't let them know that I'm not engaging them in conversation.
Right.
Okay. That's what comes first.
And those are the ones that are scary because they're chameleons.
Yes.
You know, they'll play the hand in front of them. You know, they make you think that, oh, they on the team or they down with the cause. And then, you know, you turn around and they on the other team doing your Rugu stuff. And it's like, yeah, you got to be careful. We got to be careful.
That's 100% true. And you can't be 100% sure all the time, because one of the ways they've been able to defeat many of the things that we've attempted to do is to not let you know who they are. Like Father just said, pretend you know that there's somebody else, like your Bible said. Pretend that there's something other than what they are. But once you detect them, if you realize that something is wrong or somebody is giving that information, then you have to find out who that is. There was a brother in Chicago who was part of a revolutionary organization, and he discovered that there was somebody giving away secrets to the police. So he knew there were three possibles. So what he did was he told one, we're going to, all of them at the same time, we're going to, and he told them differently. To the one guy, he told him, you know, we're going to be breaking into the armory that night. You know, we're going to get us some guns. Another guy told him, we're going to rob this bank at such a time. Another guy told him, we're going to do something else. Wherever the police showed up, he knew that was the one who had told. And the police did show up at one of those things. Okay? So you have to figure out ways to find out really the depth of who people are. Even people who you've known all your life. Okay? There's a brother who I'd known pretty much 35 years in my life. Turned out to be somebody who I wasn't about. It wasn't about anything having to do with African people. But he had played that game for a long time. So you have to be very, very careful in observing, who's around you.
Absolutely.
I want to mention I had the opportunity to talk with Baba Shikari, and he taught me we as a people have some serious work to do. And though we know the Creator has many names, we're witnessing a ritual of detachment. It doesn't matter whether they say God, Allah, Yahweh, or Amara. As soon as someone opens their mouth and says, God will fight my battles or God will work it out, they have declared you irrelevant. And right then, you were supposed to kick they butt out of any position of leadership in your society.
Absolutely.
Because we have to liberate ourselves. So we cannot let any Negropean or Yoruba get in the way of that. No one is coming to save us. So Baba Broody, as we begin to close, I want to return to Kebuka because remembering is both the beginning and the end of liberation. We cannot move forward if we don't understand what we carry, and we cannot survive what is coming if we forget what has already happened. So, Baba, if you had to sum up Kebuka, what would you say African people must remember now to survive 2026 and beyond, and what we must forget in order to move forward? Because memory is a weapon, but forgetting can be a weapon too.
We have to understand what we have to remember is the magnitude of the assault. And the understanding of that keeps growing because numbers keep appearing. I use our common sense. Okay, so my math says somewhere between 200 and 280 million Africans were murdered between the point of capture and their arrival here. Because I did the math backward from how many were here and what it took to get us across the ocean and what it took us on the land. So you have to remember, you have to understand and remember the magnitude of what was done for us. Not that just it was done for us, the magnitude of what was done to us, and break it down if you can to the day. How many of us on average per day were murdered by Europeans? Just like you can do that in Australia, you can do that with the Tasmanians, you can do all of that. But in terms of what we have to forget, we have to forget what happened to us once we got here. We have to forget the menticide that's in all of us. Okay, none of us are exempt. The magnitude of the menticide in us varies, but not the fact that we all have something in there, because socialization affects everything. It brings ideas into every area of your life. You can't just get rid of it like that. You can remove some of it slowly but surely as you get older, but some of it's going to remain. And we have to know how to control and how to get rid of it. And we should get better with that as we get older. But we have to remember, we're not sane, not completely and totally. As much as I've written and studied all it, I'm not completely sane. There's some aspects of my life I'm still working on, and I'll probably be working on to the day I transition. Okay. So we need to remember what has happened to us as a result of menticide, what we lost as a function of menticide. Now we can barely build an anthill before we build the pyramids. And we have to remember what has happened to us in terms of the magnitude, because if you understand that and are able to match that up with what's happening today, then you see that nothing has changed. Urugu hasn't changed. So the memory is important in terms of what has been done to us, and the memory of what we lost has to be remembered also. Of course, that requires us knowing who we were and what we built beforehand, intellectually, physically, what have you.
And Bob Rudy, we want to give you the final word to close out today's discussion. As you speak to the family, feel free to share whatever is on your heart, whether it's wisdom you want to carry forward or any upcoming work or events you want the family to know about, any new books or projects on the horizon, or even what you and Mama Yah have plans to do, or travel or rejuvenation. The floor is yours, Baba.
I'll just say real quick, I'm doing 3 courses this year like I did last year. Like this is a college course in African-centered education. This year, I'm going to be focusing on the sexual aspect of it. So the first course is going to be on sex imperative. The next is on homosexuality. And the last one's on Urugu's eunuchs. So if folks, and I'm probably teaching these courses for the last time. I'm getting a little older. So I'm probably teaching these courses And I'm going to be teaching these courses until I've gotten through all of my books. This year is just those 3 books. So people, please look out for the ads for that, for the flyers for that. And if you have an interest, then come on down.
Are those going to be online?
Those are going to be online. Yes.
Okay, and will those classes be all inclusive, or are they going to be broken out into separate sessions, as you mentioned, the 3 different pieces?
They're going to be four weeks for each class, for each course, So for each one, and they're all going to be on Wednesdays. So it'll be of 1 month, the first Wednesday, second, third, fourth Wednesday. I believe that the classes are hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, something like that.
I was just asking Baba real quick because I want to join, but there's a couple of pieces of that I would like to have Reya'Sekhmet sit in. So I was just trying to see, is that something that is okay for her to sit in? Like, for instance, the Yurugu unit and the other one that you had mentioned.
I believe, and we've had children in these classes younger than her.
Okay.
But I believe, sort of like I don't do cursing. So things that are at that level. And for me also, what I say will depend upon who's in the class.
Okay.
So if there are youth in that class, then, and usually with that, I'll ask Nia. She's really good on judging what should and should not be talked about. Or, and I've done it in one class, I would say, ask the parents there, can you take your children out of the classroom for the next 3 or 4 minutes? Because things I need to say here, So it's family centered. It's family centered.
Well, we'll definitely be a part of that. We'll definitely be a part of it.
And especially the sex imperative, because homosexuality and the feminization of African males started as a chapter in the sex imperative. Sex imperative lays out the whole idea of sex within the European mind. And then homosexuality is one aspect of it. Yurugu's Unix really deals with young folk today trying to defend homosexuality as normal and natural. And it's mainly focused about the young folks because that's where it's coming from.
Do you have dates for those?
I have dates, and those will be on the flyers.
Okay.
So there'll be 2 flyers for each one. And in fact, I promise I will post them tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. I want to attach that information to this discussion we're having today, so that I want to make sure that we put this video out so that it is a complement to your upcoming classes.
Well, then let me do this. The sex imperative is going to be February 4th through February 25th.
Okay.
February 4th through 25th from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Homosexuality and the feminization of African males. It's going to be May 6th through 27th.
Okay.
May 6th through 27th. And Yurugu's Unix is going to be August the 5th through August 26th.
My birthday is in August. It's August 17th.
There we go. You got to celebrate yourself, right?
Yes.
Her birthday is the same day as the Honorable Marcus Garvey.
Oh, they say there are no accidents. They say there are no accidents, And I don't think he left his spirit to only one person.
Absolutely.
Bring that whirlwind. That's what he was talking about. Bring that whirlwind. When you said anything on your heart that you need to bring out, and folks need to be more serious. They need to be more conscious of common sense security, because the danger is there and the danger is real. And we have to look at it as something real, and that won't mess up your day. Just like when you're watching the movies, you look for things that have to do with security. That's not going to take the joy out of the movie. We have to take this more seriously. Sit down and think about, what is it that I can do in this house, this apartment, this condo to make it more secure? Because I have children here, or I have siblings here, or I have parents here. And I appreciate you all inviting me on. This is the second time I have enjoyed this, just like I enjoyed the first one. And I wish nothing but, and I know luck is kind of a wrong word, but I wish you all with this program and your work and your writing and all that, the best of luck, because we need this. Now we want it. We need this. We need this information. We need these ideas. We need the new voices.
Appreciate that.
So reach out. We'll talk. And everybody have a wonderful day. Oh, the last point. Here in Atlanta, it's cold. At about 11:05, the sun came out, and it's been out ever since. Before that, it was all cloudy. About 11:05, the sun came out, and it's been out since then. So I'm not gonna say you guys had that kind of power, but I'll give it to
you. Well, we manifesting it now, right?
There we go. There we go.
There you have it, family. Until next time, please absolutely devour the like button and subscribe. Peace and love is the key.
Family, the African world is in critical condition, but there is a way forward. Study Baba Baruti's works, purchase his books, tap into his lectures and workshops, and educate yourself, family.
And as the ancestor Fannie Lou Hamer has said, God is not going to put it in your lap. Sacrifice and pay the price.
All right. You all take care, and a BB for Hodie.
A BB for
Hodie.
Peace and love is the key. Ra represents the essence of truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, and germane which is blasphemy and righteousness.
J&J-Life podcast. The J&J-Life podcast was created to give the family a place and platform to embrace their spiritual awakening and consciousness. J&J-Life is dedicated to showcasing the beauty of our culture, educating our people and those that want to learn this work.
Smash that like button. Peace and love is Nikki.